Django was a movie that pretty much showed you some of what about how white privilege will get you out of a lot of situations. It also showed you how even being a free slave, you never all was actually viewed during that period of time as being as having the liberals of a white individual. Um, Django in this movie is pretty much you could describe as being a slave hero, escaped slave hero, where you could see him be able to do things that the normal slaves, the average slaves, would not had the accommodations to do. They could not get away with the things he got with, and partially of that because he had a white German with him that used his white privilege as any corner that he got to use. He used it, and for example, um, when Django and Dr. Schultz was at the saloon and he killed the bartender out there in front of the saloon and the marshal came down and they was going to shoot down the bar, shoot down the saloon because they was in there and Dr. Schultz came out and he flagged a false piece of documentation showing that he had the right to kill the guy because he was a bondsman and he was wanted dead alive. They was going to get him dead alive, and that's how he made his money. They didn't shoot him, but if that had been Django that came out of there flashing that same piece of documentation, he probably would have got killed. They probably would have shot him during that piece of time. So that showed you some of how Quentin Tarantino was showing you how white privilege was used during that period of time. And also, Django was on his quest to get his wife back, and he was trying to find her, and he was trying to do all the means, use all the means that he could. He didn't care if he had to be the black slave man, the black slave driver, or uh, he had to kill or allow some other black person to be killed or slave to be killed. Because his quest, his whole purpose was to get back to getting to his wife and getting his wife back. Now, during this film, with slaves oppressed, suppressed, economically, politically, and socially, yes, they was. Most was contained to the plantations. They didn't have very much social skills. They didn't have no understanding of life outside of the plantations. Um, for example, we'll take when Dr. Schultz and Django arrived at Big Daddy's plantation, and the young black slave girl, she she was delegated the task of taking Django around the tour of the plantation, and Dr. Schultz requested that he don't be treated like no slave, and Big Daddy uh, understood where he was coming from, but the young black slave girl asked him how should I treat him? Should I treat him like a white man? And he was like, no, definitely don't treat him like no white man. No. He don't have the liberties of a white man. Treat him like the guy down the street, the little brown boy down the street that owned the business. So even though he was a free man, he was still not viewed as being didn't give given the liberties of being a white man. So even though he was free, he was still considered a free black man, for to say. And he wasn't given the rights to roam in the house or walk in the house like Dr. Schultz did, but he was not treated as the slaves that was on that plantation. Um, Another point to be made to this film that slavery was pretty much accepted. They was all the slaves accepted their roles and what they were supposed to do. They was not. This film did not depict them as being abused, other than when they got out of line, like when Hilda tried to escape the farm and the plantation, and she was captured by Steven and his crew and placed in a hot box. Now, when they placed them in a hot box, normally they placed them in there for about a week at a time, but that's one form of showing of how to have control over a slave. And That's shows that the institution has some abusive means to controlling the slaves during that period of time. Um, Django gave a real sarcastic view of slavery. It gave a open-minded view of how slavery was during that period of time. It didn't show it as an abusive institution, even though it was an abusive institution. It showed it as being a uh, means to uh, gain money or economical means to grow from it for the white man. But overall, the film didn't show it as an abusive institution, even though we know that slavery, the institution of slavery, was an abusive institution.